The American dream is a simple, beautiful promise. It's the idea that if you work hard and play by the rules, you can build a good life for yourself and your family. It doesn't promise you a mansion or a life of luxury. It promises something much more profound: dignity. The dignity of a steady job that pays a fair wage. The pride of owning your own home in a safe neighborhood. The security of knowing your kids can get a decent education and have a better future than you did. This isn't a Republican or a Democrat idea. It is the very soul of our nation, the engine that has powered generations of Americans from all walks of life. It's the story of my own family, and maybe yours too. For too long, however, that promise has felt more like a cruel taunt than a real possibility. Millions of Americans are working harder than ever before, often juggling multiple jobs, yet they feel like they are falling further and further behind. The things their parents took for granted, a stable career, a home, affordable healthcare, a secure retirement, now seem like distant fantasies. They see a system that feels rigged against them, a system where the rewards flow to a small group at the very top, while the working people who build this country are left with the scraps. This isn't just an economic problem. It's a spiritual crisis that hollows out our communities and our shared sense of purpose. This feeling of being left behind is real. It's not a figment of anyone's imagination. You can see it in the shuttered factories in the Rust Belt. You can hear it in the worried conversations around kitchen tables in rural towns and sprawling suburbs alike. People feel a deep sense of betrayal. They did everything they were supposed to do. They studied, they worked, they raised their families. But the ladder to the middle class seems to have been pulled up, leaving them stranded. The dream wasn't just about accumulating stuff. It was about belonging to a society that valued your contribution and gave you a fair shot. That is the promise we have lost. But here is the most important thing you need to know. This was not an accident. The decline of the American dream was not some inevitable force of nature, or a simple consequence of globalization. It was the result of a series of conscious decisions, policies, and priorities that favored the powerful and the privileged over the common good. Understanding how this happened is not about placing blame or wallowing in despair. It is about empowering ourselves with knowledge, because only by understanding how the dream was dismantled can we learn how to rebuild it, stronger and more inclusive than ever before. The power to reclaim it is in our hands. Let's start with the political forces that have chipped away at the foundation of our dream. For decades, our political system has become increasingly disconnected from the lives of ordinary working people. Politicians in both parties have become beholden to wealthy donors, corporate lobbyists, and a professional managerial class that lives in a bubble. They talk about esoteric social issues and global concerns while ignoring the bread-and-butter realities facing their constituents. They pass trade deals that ship good-paying jobs overseas and tax codes that reward corporations for hoarding profits instead of investing in their workers. This isn't about left versus right. It's about the top versus the rest. The political class has forgotten who they work for. Economically, the heist has been even more blatant. The bargain that once existed between workers and employers has been shattered. The idea that if a company did well, its employees would share in that success through better wages and benefits has been replaced by a ruthless focus on shareholder value. We've seen the systematic destruction of unions, which once gave workers a powerful voice to demand their fair share. Meanwhile, the cost of everything essential for a middle-class life, housing, education, and healthcare, has skyrocketed, while wages for the bottom 90% have remained stubbornly flat for 40 years. This has created a permanent state of economic precarity for millions. The social fabric of our nation has also been deliberately torn. A healthy society is built on shared values and a sense of common destiny. But a new elite ideology has emerged that emphasizes division over unity. It sorts people by race and identity, telling them that their primary allegiance is to their group, not to their nation or their community. This focus on what divides us distracts from the one thing that truly unites the vast majority of Americans, regardless of their background: class. It pits working-class people against each other, preventing them from seeing their common enemy, a system that exploits them all for the benefit of a few. Finally, we cannot ignore the legal and environmental dimensions. The legal system has been tilted to favor corporations over individuals, making it harder for workers to sue for wrongful termination or for consumers to hold companies accountable. Environmental policies, however well-intentioned, are often designed by urban elites with little regard for the working-class communities whose jobs depend on manufacturing or energy production. They impose costs that fall heaviest on those who can least afford them, without offering a just transition or a viable path to new, well-paying jobs. This creates a false choice between a clean environment and a good job, when we should be demanding both. So how do we fight back? We must engage on all 5 fronts, starting with politics. We need to reclaim our political system from the bottom up. This means supporting candidates, and they exist in both parties, who talk about class, who champion workers' rights, and who are committed to rebuilding American manufacturing. People like J.D. Vance in Ohio and Ruben Gallego in Arizona speak a language of economic populism that resonates with ordinary people. It means getting involved in local politics, on school boards and city councils, where you can have a direct impact on the policies that shape your community. We must demand a politics that serves the people, not just the powerful. On the economic front, the path forward is clear. We need to empower workers. This means supporting the resurgence of the labor movement. Look at the recent union victories at places like Starbucks and Amazon. These are not just headlines, they are battle plans. We should buy from companies that treat their employees well and boycott those that don't. We must advocate for policies that raise the minimum wage to a living wage and that tie corporate tax breaks directly to investments in American jobs and higher pay. The goal is to restore the basic bargain, a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. It is the cornerstone of economic dignity. Socially, our task is to reject the divisive narratives and rebuild our sense of common purpose. We must focus on what unites us. Turn off the cable news that profits from our anger and talk to your neighbors instead. You'll likely find you have more in common with the person next door, regardless of their race or who they voted for, than you do with the pundits on TV. We can build solidarity by focusing on shared local concerns, like fixing the park, improving the local school, or supporting a local business. True solidarity is built face-to-face through shared work toward a common good, not through abstract identity labels. On the legal and environmental fronts, we must demand justice and common sense. This means fighting for legal reforms that strengthen worker protections and make it easier to hold corporations accountable. For example, supporting legislation that bans non-compete clauses for low-wage workers gives people the freedom to seek better jobs. When it comes to the environment, we must insist on a just transition. This means that any green energy policy must include massive investment in creating high-paying, dignified jobs in the communities that are being asked to change. We can and should have both a healthy planet and a thriving working class. The forces arrayed against the American working class are powerful, but they are not invincible. Our greatest strength lies in our numbers and our shared desire for a life of dignity and purpose. The first step in reclaiming our dream is to believe that it is possible. We must shake off the cynicism and despair that our elites encourage, because a hopeless population is a compliant one. Hope is not a passive wish, it is a form of defiance. It is the fuel for action. Look around you. You are not alone in this fight. Your neighbors, your co-workers, and people in towns all across this country want the exact same thing you do. The next step is to get practical. Start small and local. You don't have to solve every problem at once. Join a parent-teacher association to fight for better resources for your public school. Organize with your neighbors to demand better services from your city council. Support local businesses that are invested in your community, not just their own bottom line. When you buy a coffee from a local shop instead of a multinational chain, you are casting a vote for a different kind of economy. These small acts, when multiplied by millions, create a tidal wave of change that cannot be ignored. We must also change the conversation. For too long, the media and the political class have controlled the narrative, distracting us with culture wars while they picked our pockets. We have to start talking about class again. Talk about it with your friends, your family, and your co-workers. Ask why the richest country in the history of the world can't provide basic economic security for the people who do its most essential work. By changing the conversation, we change what is considered politically possible. We force our leaders to address the issues that truly matter to the vast majority of Americans. This is our call to action. The American dream is not a relic of the past to be displayed in a museum. It is a living, breathing promise that we must fight for in our own time. It will not be handed back to us by the people who took it away. We must reclaim it ourselves through our collective action, our courage, and our unwavering belief in the dignity of the American worker. The work is hard, but the stakes could not be higher. It is a fight for our families, our communities, and the very soul of our nation. Let's get to work.